The Trek Émonda 2021. Could it be the greatest of all time? In this video we have a look. Coming up in the show, Gavin the Goat tries on an aero helmet. We look at the 2021 Émonda. We compare it to the 2020 Émonda. We compare it to the 2020 Trek Madone. And a whole bunch of other bikes. And then we have a look at the whole range of the new Trek Émonda. And I'll probably tell you whether I like the colour or not. We'll probably also look at some alternatives. And at the end we'll do a deep dive and wrestle it out with the Émonda's competitors. And I'll decide which bike I like the best. And if you find yourself getting restless, I've put links in the description down below to jump to all the different bits of the video. Okay, let's get on with it. So back in December of 2019 I made a video that I called The New Breed, and in that video I included the Scott Addict RC Premium, the Focus Izalco Max, the Cannondale Supersix, the Orbea ORCA and the Wilier Zero SLR. So what all these bikes have in common is that they're lightweight all-round racing bikes, so climbers will use them, but they also have aerodynamic tube profiles, quite often borrowed from the company's own aero bike, if scaled down a little bit, but then they also have integrated cockpits where the cabling is routed internally to the stem and the frame. In other words, you don't see any cables. One of the bigger companies, Specialized, don't actually have this concept at the moment, so I joked about the fact that they probably do have it on their drawing board, and that maybe they've taken a Tarmac and a Venge, chopped the front off the Venge and stuck it on the end of the Tarmac, coming up with the lovely new concept bike, the Tarmenge. Probably come up with a better name. And then if the latest rumours on the internet are true, this came out a few weeks ago, this looks like it could be the new Tarmac, and it does look pretty close to that concept. So without further ado, here she is, the Trek Émonda 2021. And when I first saw this picture, this is what I thought. I love you.
I could not love a human baby as much as I love this brush.
And I really wanted to play the Je t'aime music here, but unfortunately on YouTube, if I play that, they would do me for copyright and I would lose the $5 or $6 that I get in advertising for my videos. So this is the top of the range SLR 9 eTap Axis group set that we're all pretty familiar with now on all these top end bikes. It's wireless, it's 12 speed, it's got batteries on it, and in this case it comes with the power meter, which for £9,700, I think you'd kind of expect them to throw that in, wouldn't you? We've got the cables nicely hidden away, and in fact actually it's quite a nice system here where it comes underneath the stem. There's a little plate here that you screw down to hold the cables in place, and then they come down the front of the head tube. Very nice and neat and tidy. So this is obviously a disc brake bike, and in fact the new Émonda is only disc brake, so all you rim lovers out there, this is definitely not the bike for you. So like I said, when I first saw this bike I immediately fell in love with it. I think it's flipping lovely. There were just a couple of little disappointments that immediately struck me. This is a screenshot from the blurb video on the Trek website, and as you can definitely see, the seat tube is round. Now for a bike with aero aspirations, if you read anything about aerodynamics, a round cylinder is one of the worst shapes that you can have for aerodynamics, so I'm a little bit confused why it's round and not like one of the D-shaped camtail type seat posts that we see on bikes like the Tarmac or the new TCR. But I'm sure those boffins at Trek know a lot better than I do. Possibly it's something to do with the comfort of the bike, but I did just wonder about that. The other slight disappointment, on the left you can see the new Émonda integrated handlebar, and it's all one piece, so there's no way to adjust the angle of the bars, and that's in fact how they had it on the Madone until they realised, I guess, that people want to be able to change the angle of the handlebars, and so the latest version now you get a little bit of adjustment because it's actually two pieces. So I assumed that the new Émonda would have that set up as well, but it doesn't. Maybe that's to save weight, I guess, I don't know, but I was a little tiny bit disappointed about that. And is it just me, or does anybody else have OCD when it comes to lining up their shifters on their handlebars? And this is promotional photography for Trek, so I'm assuming that these bikes were set up by some pretty good mechanics, which just goes to show it's so difficult to line them up. I like to have mine pointing in a bit, and I spend ages trying to get them lined up, and then I go out and it doesn't matter how hard I try, they always look wrong. I would love to see manufacturers come up with a way that just gave us a foolproof way of lining up our shifters and all the other bits of the bike as well, to be honest. I mean, it's impossible to know if your handlebars are 100% perpendicular to your front wheel. It's all going to be off a little tiny bit, and for my OCD that's not good. So let's have a look at this 2021 Émonda in comparison to the 2020 Émonda, and immediately there we can see it's quite a radical shake up in the design, and in fact quite interestingly the 2020 model is slightly lighter than the new model. And I've always been a big fan of this bike as well, and having ridden a friend's top of the range version of it, possibly one of the best bikes I've ever ridden. I absolutely loved it. So if we look up at the front end, the new Émonda allows you to get much lower at the front. Much more racy. The standover height's quite a lot higher on the new one. Back end is fairly similar, I guess. Same length chainstays. I don't know whether it's an optical illusion, but the upside down seat post on the new one sort of seems a bit fatter, or somehow more obvious. I think I probably prefer the old one actually, but it might just be the colour of the paint, to be honest. So I think interestingly, you could actually argue that the new Émonda has more in common with the old Madone. So this is the old Madone. I'm not sure if it's 2014 or 15, I couldn't quite nail that down, but there's actually quite a few similarities there. And then the Madone from 2020 is actually quite a departure from itself in a way. So it's interesting how these bikes evolve and how the designers come up with different ideas as they go through the years. But if we compare this 2020 Madone with the 2021 Émonda, you can actually see some design cues that have come across from this bike. The shaping up here around the front is quite similar. And it actually begs the question, have these manufacturers, by going to these lightweight aero machines, actually shot themselves in the foot a little bit? I expected this Madone to win a lot more races than it did last year, and I reckon that the pros are going to be more interested in riding this Émonda. And I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of the Madone. I think it looks cool. But now given the choice, yeah, I think I'd go Émonda myself. So does that actually mean, and put a comment down below, could we be seeing the death of the full-out aero bike? There's a question. Oh yeah, check me out. Took ages to do that. Right, moving swiftly on. How does the new Émonda stack up against the Tarmac from Specialized? Pretty different really. Obviously the Tarmac has the drop seat stays. Trek have obviously decided that's not for them. But the geometry is actually quite similar, isn't it? And what about the new Giant TCR? Is the top of the range Advanced SL 0 disc against the Émonda? It's all quite different up front. With the new TCR, Giant have actually managed to keep their chainstays very short, 405. And the Émonda's a 410. So that's actually quite short for a disc bike. And weight wise, the Giant is actually coming in quite a good bit lighter than the Émonda there. What about the Canyon Ultimate? Here's the SLX 9. Similar spec, SRAM red eTap access, but look at the difference in price. 6699. 97. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a big Canyon fanboy. I've had a couple of Canyon mountain bikes which I rate highly, but I gotta say just lately they've sort of been bugging me a little bit. They changed their website a while back and I just don't get on with it at all. I used to love their website, it was so easy to use and it all made sense. And I don't know what it is now, I just don't really like it anymore. So that's my first bugbear. And then I've got no problem with e-bikes, really. There are reasons for them that are good. But with Canyon in particular, it seems that the development of their road bikes has taken a hit while they've been updating all their electric bikes and mountain bikes. And then their road bikes have really not changed at all for years now, other than a few different colour schemes. So they're sort of falling a bit behind, I think. Their road bikes are definitely due a refresh. And I made a video a while back about Vanderpoel being seen on a new air road, but as yet no new air road has been released other than new paint jobs as far as I can tell. So come on Canyon, enough of the electric bikes already, give us some new road bikes. Thank you. Okay, so let's have a look through the new Émonda range and see what Trek are offering at all the different price points. So at the top of the range, as we've seen earlier, the SLR 9 eTap, 9,700, but also at this price point you can also buy the Dura Ace Di2 version, same price. Actually a tiny bit lighter, but apart from the change in group set, effectively the same bike. And I believe these Bontrager Aeolus RSL 37 wheels are new as well, and they look rather nice. Next down in the price range, we come to the SLR7 eTap, which comes with the SRAM Force Axis group set, and this reduces the price quite considerably to $6,850. Still an insane amount of money, but we're going in the right direction. I quite like the look of the Force group set. Never actually ridden it before. If you have, leave a comment down below, let us know what you think of it. But it's actually still the same frame and forks as the super expensive version. We're still in the SLR range, so, and a pretty good weight at 7.33 kilograms. Okay, so then the next one down, it's the SLR7 Ultegra Di2, and if you get the red paint job, which is this one, which I quite like, it's actually a lot cheaper. So if you imagine SRAM Force and Ultegra Di2 are pretty similarly spec'd really, but you can actually get this SLR7 for nearly $1,000 cheaper. So that's got to be a good thing, right? I think that red paint's rather snazzy. Okay, so down from the Di2, we hit the Ultegra Mechanical, 5,450, coming in at 7.26 kilograms, so slightly heavier than the Di2, and actually the SRAM Force is heavier than both of those, so interesting. What I forgot to say is that the two top of the range bikes are the only ones with the Aeolus RSL 37 wheels, and then we drop down to the Pro version. So coming back to the Ultegra Mechanical, gotta say I'm not keen on that blue paint job, looks a bit weird to me. So it definitely wouldn't be my first choice. Okay, and then it's at this point in the range where we come to a fork in the road and we drop down to the SL7 eTap. So we're now on to the 500 series carbon as opposed to the 800 series carbon, which piles on a bit more weight, but it's quite an interesting choice here because the price is comparable. But if you drop down to the SL, you are on the lower grade frame set, whereas if you go for the SLR6, you're on obviously the SLR frame set. So it all depends how much you're interested in this group set, I guess. SRAM Force eTap versus Ultegra Mechanical, or top grade frame set, second grade frame set. Personally, other than the blue colour, I would go for the better frame set myself, but obviously the other thing you're losing out on is the integration of the cables into the stem, because on the SL7 we've gone over to a conventional stem and bar. Quite like the gold colour with the silver on. So there we go, quite an interesting decision to make there, if that happens to be your price point. And then we go from the SL7 eTap to the SL7, which is Ultegra Di2. Nice reduction in the price from the SRAM Force one, and actually a little bit lighter as well, so you've got to really like the SRAM group set to actually go for that. We're practically up to an 8 kilo bike here without pedals or bottle cages on. Yeah, not sure about this orange though. Okay, next it's the SL6 Pro. Again, a nice chunk cheaper. Ultegra Mechanical, which means that you get the massive shifter levers, which though I've taken the mickey out of a lot, I put the Tiagra version on my winter bike and I actually really like them. They've got a real nice feel to them. So I should probably stop taking the mickey out of them too much. I'm not entirely sure how neat these cables are going to look if you buy these lower versions of this Émonda. That looks like it's had a bit of Photoshop done on it, but might be wrong. And we're getting pretty heavy now, over 8 kilograms. Next we have exactly the same again, except this is the SL6. As we've gone to a cheaper set of wheels. So we've ditched the Bontrager Aeolus Elite 35s and we've gone down to quite a bit more heavy set of aluminium wheels at about 250 grams heavier. But you're saving 450 quid. So there we go. And then last but not least in this range from the Émonda 2021, we've got the SL5, which comes with the 105 group set from Shimano. And we've actually got a compact crankset on here, 5034, rather than what we had on the previous version, which was the 5236. Both still sticking to the 1130 cassette on the rear. Got a cheaper stem on it as well by the looks of things. Quite a nice paint job, not keen on that saddle. This is your cheapest option, £2,275. But she's a heavy beast, 9.15 kilograms. Quite a long way from our 6.74 kilograms on the top of the range bike. So there we go, that is the Trek Émonda 2021 range of bikes. Can't help but think, if I'm looking to build a climbing bike, would I be better off going rim brake, because Giant are still making rim brake versions of their TCR, and if you went for the TCR Advanced 2 stock, it comes in at 8.1 kilograms, so that's over a kilogram lighter than the Trek Émonda. Same group set. It actually says on the website that the Giant is a 5236, but in the photo it's a 5034, same as the Trek. But we have quite a big price difference, 1699 for the Giant, 2275 for the Trek. So that'll leave you quite a lot of wedge to replace these, what are probably pretty heavy wheels on the cheap Giant here. Maybe replace those with a set of Hunt Race Aero aluminium 27mm deep wheels, 359 quid, which would probably bring it down to about 7.5 kilos at a guess. And I couldn't help but put on a pair of Specialized cotton turbo tyres because they've got the gum wall on, which I rather like, and I changed the saddle. So for 2058 you've got yourself a pretty light climbing bike there, which is a lot lighter and quite a bit cheaper than the bottom of the range Trek Émonda. So just an idea. Just before I wrap this video up, I wanted to look at some price point data of the competition against the Trek Émonda. So in this graph, I basically matched the Giant TCR, the Canyon Ultimate, the Scott Addict RC, the Cannondale Supersix EVO, and the Focus Izalco Max. I matched group set versions of all those bikes against what we just looked at in the Émonda range, and then sorted all the bikes by their weight. So at this end here we've got the heavyweights, and at this end here we've got the lightweights. Then if you draw what I'm calling the value line, which runs from the price of the heaviest bike to the price of the most expensive bike, any bikes that fall below that line are well within their value, and certainly anything that falls above that line one could argue is kind of expensive. So then if we look at the top end range bikes, the super bikes if you like, there's 5 bikes under 7 kilograms. The most expensive bike being the Scott Addict RC Ultimate, coming in at 6.9 kilograms, but then the lightest bike is the TCR Advanced SL 0, coming in at 6.65 kilograms. So quite a bit lighter. And if you compare the price of the TCR, it's actually quite a lot cheaper than the Scott and a tiny bit cheaper than the 2 top of the range Émondas. And if per chance you're looking for a super bike with the lowest price, so the best value, which when you're spending this type of money I'm not sure you're really looking for value, but if you were, it's the Ultimate SLX 9 eTap from Canyon. Now then, the accolade of the heaviest bike in this collection goes to what we just looked at, the Émonda SL5, coming in at 9.15 kilograms. Then if you pull up the bike that's arguably the best value, I think it's got to be this one, which is the Canyon Ultimate SL7, coming in at 7.9 kilograms, and is actually cheaper than the heaviest bike, the Émonda, but a good bit lighter. It's a good bit lighter than a lot of more expensive bikes, so that's pretty incredible value, I think. Now then, if you said to me which one do I want, and money is no object, I think I'd go for the Trek Émonda SLR 9, 6.72 kilograms. But clearly that is a lot of money, and I'm never going to spend that on a bike unless I suddenly win the lottery. So what I want and what I'd actually buy are two very different things. What would I buy from this sample of bikes? Well, generally I work on a budget of about $3,000 when I think about buying a new bike. I think that's a pretty fair price for a push bike. And out of this selection, this bike here, the Ultimate SL8 Di2, 7.5 kilograms from Canyon. There's a lot of heavier bikes coming in a lot more expensive, and I think here, coming in at my price range, that would be a good buy. And it's this bike here, Di2, and for £3,049, 7.5 kilos, I think that's pretty cracking value actually. So there we go. Which one would you buy? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm going to wrap this video up here. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Merci beaucoup.